Anyone else that,
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
okay. I would like to welcome everyone to the March 31, 2023 meeting of the Niskayuna Complete Streets Committee. I'll quickly do the roll call of our members. Tess Healy, not yet, but I'm sure will be on the way. Same for Carla Duggal. I don't see her yet, but I'm hopeful she'll be here.
Carla emailed me that she's not feeling very well.
Okay, well, we'll list Carla as excused for the day. I'm here. Jim Levy sent me a note saying that he had a meeting with a client and he's going to try to join us. He'll join us in progress, but he has a meeting with a client. Elise Corbin, I'm hopeful will join us as soon as she can, when she gets out of school. Andrew, how are you today? Pleased to see you. And Catherine Kuzman, pleased to see you. Catherine is here today. And Ben O'Shea, happy to see you, Ben.
Hello.
Okay. And then I just mentioned that Trish Bergami is helping Laura Robertson in the planning office with Complete Streets. She has picked up the duties of Jean Fody, so she'll be helping us out. And welcome to Trish Bergami. And we have some other citizens here watching the meeting. Welcome to them. And if one or more of them wants to speak briefly at privilege of the floor, please let us know that. Okay. Are we doing privilege of the floor, or does that come after the minutes?
In our agenda, it comes before the minutes, actually.
Yeah.
If you want to just open it up, you're welcome to.
Okay. Well, let me stop right here. If there are some citizens out there that want to speak for a minute or two in front of the Complete Streets Committee, we'd be happy to take those comments at this juncture. Hello, Tess. How are you? Thanks for joining us. Anyone from the public to speak at privilege of the floor? Okay. Let's move on to our minutes. And we have two sets. Thank you very much to Jack Connolly. If Jack's listening in today, we appreciate his effort in putting together minutes for our committee. I'll entertain any corrections that members have. And on line 51, Laura, of Jan 27 meeting minutes, that sentence is not clear to me, so I thought maybe we could ask either you or Jack to take a look at it. It's a little confusing, and so we might want to fix that.
Okay, so that's currently there's planned to be an emergency access point for this subdivision that will be grassed.
No, this is Jan 27.
Oh, Jan 27, sorry.
It says Chairman Chapman, not that Mr. Chapman doesn't have some convoluted thoughts and sentences.
Sorry.
But it reads, Chairman Chapman recommended finding smaller roundabouts to point out to residents for learning purposes than that they could tell me about to try and drive through.
Yeah, that does need to be fixed. Okay.
Needs to be fixed, but we did have Andrew and Ben O'Shea that took a look at, I believe, maybe Dean and Morrow, but we were interested in looking at some examples of the smaller roundabouts that might just be a planter or a smaller roundabout, some they use in Seattle and other communities, so that we'd have a picture of it, I think is what we meant there. And that was the only one that I have. And do any other members have a comment or a correction for the January 27 minutes? Okay, being none, I would like to move that we accept the January 27 meeting minutes with that one correction that Laura will put in place. So moved, and I'm looking for a second. Second from Andrew Millspaugh. And we have a first and a second. All in favor of accepting the minutes for the January 27 meeting? Hands up, please. Okay, we're unanimous on that, Laura. Then I'd like to move on to the March 3rd meeting. And I do have one comment there on line 181. This is our meeting with the school district that was attended by Jim Levy, Andrew Millspaugh, Laura Robertson, and myself. We met with 3 school board members and with superintendent of schools, Mr. Mumanthe, and the engineers for the school district and part of the new bonding project. So in regards to priority letters, Chairman Chapman said that it should be he and town planner Laura Robertson and Complete Streets members Jim Levy and Andrew Millspaugh. Now, I'd just like to have all 4 of us in there, that it's just not he had a productive meeting, that the 4 of us had a productive meeting with the school district. And so instead of he, that should say Bill Chapman, Laura Robertson, Jim Levy, and Andrew Millspaugh. And I would open it to the members. Does anyone else have a sentence or anything they want to see corrected for the March 3rd minutes? Okay. With that correction in place, I move we accept the March 3rd, 2023 minutes for our meeting, and I'm looking for a second. Catherine Kuzman is a second, and moved in second, and I move adoption of those minutes. If you just hold your hand up, if you're okay with that. I see all hands up, so that would be a unanimous adoption. Thank you. Okay. Okay, new business. Planning board referrals. These are projects that the planning board is looking at that Laura brings to our attention and input from Complete Streets Committee. And so we're back to looking at the Mohawk Golf Club proposal. And I'll let Laura proceed at this juncture.
Okay, so the last meeting that you guys had, you had a really basic sketch of this idea. And it didn't, even though they had shown it in a previous document, it didn't show the connection that could be made between Ruffner Road and East Country Club Drive. So the changes from the last plan that you guys saw is that they did add the walking path connection. I know that you guys also requested more connectivity among the neighborhoods between paths over here. There was a lot of discussion at the planning board. They didn't really get to discuss connectivity yet. There was still just kind of digesting what the public had to say at the public hearing. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and see if you wanted to edit or change any of the comments from the last meeting. It's not particularly different. Let's see, I can just summarize for a second. I just want to wait for a second. Did anybody have any questions on the changes?
There's no walk path to get to Row Road from this design. Is that the case? Or will there be a pedestrian pathway that people could get out of the East Country Club area, walk down this proposed new road, and have a pedestrian pathway that would take them to Row Road?
That is not proposed in this particular plan. There isn't any walking path connection from here to Row Road. And yeah, and essentially that's what your recommendation was on March 3rd.
Yeah.
That you were looking for pedestrian connections to Country Club Estates, Row Road, and Ruffner as any part of development. So the plan has been updated a little bit, but probably still have similar comments.
Is there a sidewalk or walk path that goes alongside the road as you go in from Ruffner Road and down to the end and then back out? Is there a walk path or a sidewalk, or is it just going to be an asphalt street?
It's just shown as an asphalt street. And I guess Jim's kind of the one that we sort of rely on for that. You could certainly ask for one. I don't know if it's such a small.
Yeah, it's a small development. So I know Jim Levy asked about that, and I guess I'm just wondering if people came out of the East Country Club area and, well, if there is at some future date, or if there's to be a connection to Row Road, a pedestrian connection, is that something we'd have to ask for now and try to get now instead of trying to retrofit, which we've seen is not very productive, not always productive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jim and maybe even Tess, I think at the last meeting, felt that we should ask for as much pedestrian connection as we could, knowing that the plans might change, but that's our job. So, yeah, the committee's recommendation from 3-3 was to increase pedestrian connections to Country Club Estates, Row Road, and Ruffner Road as any part of development proposal here. We can just reiterate, or we could also add, maybe explore whether or not there should be a side path along the cul-de-sac road as proposed.
Well, I mean, I can ask the members. I mean, if it's a fairly quiet road, I mean, once you get out of East Country Club, you can just ride on the street or walk on the street. There's probably not going to be a lot of traffic in there if it's only the homeowners that are using it. I do see in the plan at the end of the cul-de-sac, does it look like there's a pathway there that extends, that could be a future connection to Row Road, a pedestrian connection, not a road connection, but where that line is that a possibility for a pedestrian connection to Row Road?
Yeah, and which you're probably remembering, one of the plan iterations showed an emergency road connection between the end of the cul-de-sac and Row Road. So you could certainly get a pedestrian connection in there. But it would be, I think that, I wonder if I can show it on a big screen. We can certainly ask for it, but it would be cutting between where people tee off, like with the golf.
No, I see.
So I don't know that they didn't even like that as an emergency road.
Okay.
I mean, I think it would be a lovely pedestrian path, except for the teeing of the
I see.
ball might not be good idea.
So, go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to ask, were there any discussions about actually having that be a road connection and eliminating the roundabout and connecting to Row? Just because this is a really, how long is this dead end? It's probably over 1,000 feet long at this point.
Yeah, that was discussed because I know that was actually one of your preliminary comments, was that you would like to not see isolation. But the problem that they identified at the time, although it's a little bit different now, but at the time they were thinking the connection would be to Country Club Estates. And
Yeah, I
then,
think now you don't have the concern with the cut through because you're coming off of Ruffner. And I get their concern with the tee box there, but that's kind of a self-imposed issue. You know, that's their land and where they're drawing their lines and what they're trying to develop. So,
right, you could ask them to modify the golf course so that there was no tee there and that you could have a safe connection there. I'm going to bring up hold on. Yeah, I don't think that point was brought up because before it was set aside, because if you connected South Country Club Drive to Row Road, that would be adding a lot of cars.
right.
So that could be another point that you could request them looking at if you're interested. I was just I think we looked at this once before, but there is some asphalt like right in through here. I think that's what we were looking at before.
Yeah, if that's already, I mean, is that like a a golf cart path or something, and so there's you tee off the golf cart path goes between the tee box and this green, or
Yeah, because this is a place where they start hitting the balls, and then they go this way towards the green. This is the tee.
Okay.
That's the green.
well,
So do we want to say, oops, sorry. Recommend the pedestrian connections wherever possible again. Explore the side path along the road if needed. And then explore the connection to Rao again.
yes. I mean, is there enough room in the front yards for an asphalt side path, or would it be a tight fit?
So it's just kind of an interesting trade-off. I think there's probably always room because I believe it's a 60-foot right-of-way. And when you separate traffic, that's obviously always safer, but it takes away the green space in the front yards, and these lots are already significantly reduced. So it would definitely mean a lot less front lawn on one side of the road.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be a stickler for that then. I since it's going to be a quiet street, since there's no road connection, once you got on the street, you could probably walk or pedal your bike on that street. Okay. And, but I mean, without any way to kind of get out, people in East Country Club would just take the connection over to Ruffner, and then they'd have to go on Ruffner and jump over to Rao Road if they wanted to get over there on Linwood or some other street, I guess.
Yeah, just like I'm just making up thoughts right now, but
They could go down to Weimer Lane and then.
I wonder if you know how the Complete Streets had that connection for a really long time between East Country Club Drive and Ruffner Road. And it was just hugging the line. It was just hugging the lot line to try and not. I mean, what if you did like?
Oh yeah, yeah. So one right there that would just hug the property line that would run from Ruffner Road over to Rao Road.
I mean, you want to get as many concessions as you possibly can. If
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Because then the people on East Country Club would have, of course, Ruffner is a busier road, but instead of having to cut through between the tee area and the green, where people would be hit by golf balls or whatever, would disrupt golf. I think that's a great connection right there. I think we should ask for that.
Pedestrian connection over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody else have an opinion on that one actually? Because I just was just thinking about that. I don't know. We've never looked at that before.
Anyone else on the committee see the merits of this?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea.
So
Absolutely. I think
Andrew's
that's
a yes.
great idea.
Catherine's a yes. Tess, you think it's a good idea?
I think we lost Tess.
Oh, okay. Ben, any thought? I don't know if you can see the map or not, but
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great idea. Absolutely.
okay.
Okay, so we'll say explore pedestrian connection.
I mean, especially, so George Young asked, could we ask for a walking path behind the tee box?
Yes, if that pink line, instead of going straight up to Rao, if it curved to the right and went around the back.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. That's a good idea.
Where is the back of the tee box?
It's over here. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the one other thing about Linwood is that it's very steep. So
Well, actually, I mean, I like both ideas. I mean, I'd like the thing behind the tee box, but even if you can get in from Linwood, so both should be there. There should be access for bicyclists on Linwood. They don't have to ride all the way down to Quamer Lane to cut across. They could get there from here. That would serve both the people in the East Country Club and people coming up Linwood. And if it's a hill, I mean, that's fine.
Although I'm not a golfer actually. Is there a tee even farther up there? I don't know how that works. Is this a tee all the way up
Yeah,
there?
it might go further up, but you get the idea there of having a curve around.
Well, I mean, if we had the line from Linwood up to Rao, I mean, people could go out on Ruffner and come down to Linwood and get up to Rao on the street on Ruffner Road. Now, of course, Ruffner is a busier road than probably this. It would be nice to be able to go through this little development right here. I mean, if you're a walker or a biker, rather than being out on Ruffner Road. So.
Okay, so we can say explore pedestrian connection from Rao to Linwood and from proposed subdivision, like to the Linwood Rao connection.
Yeah, a connection between Linwood and Rao on their property line.
Yeah, I'm just avoiding the green.
Yes, and avoid the green.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Thank you, George.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Young. That's very helpful.
Okay. Any other comments we want to make? And then next,
Is there still a bike path that goes from the middle of this housing development out to Ruffner Road, or is that just a water or sewer easement or something like that?
I'll bring that plan up again. It's proposed as the emergency access, but it's proposed to be grass.
Okay.
But I believe actually it was George that, well, it was it was you, George, wasn't it? Yeah. That presented some information that our attorneys have to look at over whether or not that access point can be used. So they may have to use a different access point anyway. That's something that we still have to look at.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we'd have to dig on, have an asphalt pathway right there. If they're willing to do something
Over on the other side.
on the other side, and
Nope.
they do the one coming over from East Country Club, then we would just leave that up to, if the town water, sewer, whoever would use that easement is okay with it being grass. I mean, then we would just leave that alone.
Yeah, the town, I don't think, yeah, it would just be a water easement.
Okay.
And then, well, but the attorneys have to look into whether or not it can be used as an emergency access or not.
Okay. George, could you send us your comment? I only got to read half of it on the connection over to East Country Club. You had a comment on that, and I only got the first 7 or 8 words.
Mind if I speak to it very quickly?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to note that the proposed walking path between Country Club and the new development road may need a fence to protect the pedestrians because people are hitting balls into that green to the right of it there.
Okay. Oh, that would be maybe a 8-foot wire fence or something like that, or a wood fence or something that would.
Yeah, maybe even taller.
Yeah, maybe a little bit taller, and it would have to have some, smaller than golf ball size hole.
Okay. So maybe a solid wood fence of some sort along there.
It'd probably be less visually striking if it was see-through, but kept the balls from hurting people. So like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually recommend an 8 or a 10-foot tall stockade fence. It's gonna look,
Yeah.
it's gonna be not aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood. But like what I'm
A fine wire
Yeah.
fence in it
yeah, or
would
something.
you could
Yeah,
get a golf ball through.
yeah.
And we'd point that out to the developers. That's a safety feature that we're still interested in having that walkway, and we don't want people to get hurt using it. So walkers and bicyclists, they would be protected from golf balls.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I mean, obviously, I don't think you need them this high, but like I like to bring my daughter to that Eagles Crest, and they have those fences that keep the golf balls from going between the driving range and where you eat the ice cream. So maybe something like that.
Can I ask Laura, if there is a asphalt walkway there and it gets snow, who's going to plow the snow off of it?
So unless the walkway is along a area that the town is designated to plow, they're seasonal. They typically won't plow those in the winter.
Okay.
They don't plow. I would say they don't actually plow the majority of the multi-use paths that we have in the town.
So it's just there, right? In other words, there's no sign that says it's closed because it's icy or snowy. It's just
Correct. You can still ski on it. If like we actually ski on the multi-use
Okay.
path near my house.
okay.
And you
But
can
if
still
somebody
ski on it.
falls on their keister and wants to sue somebody, I mean,
It's clearly
Okay.
not plowed.
okay,
I don't know exactly how that works, but the only ones that we plow are the ones in county right of ways or state right of ways, and we also do plow Knott Street East, and then we plow for the GE. We
okay.
plow them-
So this walkway would be a town easement, right? In other words, that would be a condition. It's a town easement. So,
Right.
okay,
but we wouldn't normally plow something like this.
Yep. that's a town.
Unless it's emergency access. We do plow them if they're emergency accesses.
Okay. Well, I mean, that would be, up to the highway department. If they wanted to use it as emergency access, then they'd have to think about plowing.
I think one of the things that the planning board also noted is that I think it has to be slightly wider. It's only 10-foot wide easement, which means the path I think we looked at before was like 5 feet. And so I think the planning board on its own, if this project progresses, would want a larger walking path there. But you guys could also mention that.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have a comment they want to offer on this project?
Oh, here's Jim.
Bill, I was thinking, as far as the fence and the material, I imagine that the golf club themselves probably have a vendor that has material for fencing that goes along with like driving ranges or what have you.
Okay. That sounds good.
So I'll just write as the note to explore fencing to protect walkers from golf balls on East Country Club Drive connection. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to 3900 State Street.
Okay. 3900 State Street also doesn't have too much change from the last time that you guys looked at it. Planning board did discuss trying to get the sidewalk all the way to Albany Street. The applicant brought an attorney with them that said that was beyond the reach of this project and would make this project's cost too high to be constructible. So the planning board settled for a sidewalk just in front of where the developer was developing, but that still is a good thing. And the nice thing about that is that the sidewalk is getting close to the intersection of State Street, where you're going to want the most separation of pedestrians from the intersection because of the cars changing speed and turning and things like that. So, but the one thing that changed from the last time you guys saw this is they put the tractor trailer drop-off spots actually on the plans, and they also added, so right now at these intersections, there's a fair number of cars that are being parked. I mean, almost like you can kind of see in the aerial. I mean, these cars are almost completely off their property. But it's asphalt and it's paved, and I think it's just tempting for them to line these things up with cars. And I think the planning board was not super excited about that in terms of safety, and so they proposed a landscaped island here that would prevent cars from parking right at the ends and look nicer when people were coming down the way. So it's the majority of it is the same as you saw last time, just additional landscaped islands here and some additional landscaping here. Whoops, I don't know why I keep doing that. Some additional landscaping over in this section as well. And I can't draw on this as well as I can draw in my GIS, but one of the other things that they were talking about is this is a really large section of asphalt that's privately owned. But I reached out to the owner to see if they would be amenable to this being cut down a little and turned into more of a grass kind of, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but like extend the grass so that there wasn't this huge asphalt kind of no man's land here, and just make that a little greener. And the property owner was amenable to that in the right of way. So that would, I think, definitely help from a complete streets perspective. Because I think that this area is a little confusing to cars, and that it looks wide and it looks like it might be part of somewhere where they can park, but it's actually not.
Okay. So they are okay with being able to offload cars internally in their work area there, that up on the top there and over on the left side, both of those. Okay.
Yep, and that
Does
was the recommendation. I think your guys' recommendation at the last meeting was make sure that those offloadings were happening off-site, and that you asked again for the sidewalk to go all the way to Albany Street.
Okay.
So it won't go all the way to Albany Street. Actually, the planning board did not vote in favor of this project because of the houses being taken down. But you never know what'll happen when it goes to the town board. So I just want to keep you guys in the loop.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have any further comment on 3900 State Street? If not, let's move on to the transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan. And I think on that, we've just asked members to read chapter 7, and Catherine Kuzman has done so and offered comments that have been passed along to Tess Healy, and Carla Duggal has done so. I'm still have to do mine, and I believe Jim Levy mentioned that depending, and I don't know that we have an answer yet from Dart Strayer on, does the comp plan committee want us to revise chapter 7, or do they just want comments from us?
He said as much help as we can do would be accepted.
Well, that kind of leaves the door open a bit, doesn't it? So,
So I have pulled together some thoughts as I discussed at the last meeting about potential kind of goals, objectives related to complete streets. It's not final yet, but I do have a list pulled together. So we'll maybe for the next meeting have that everyone can take a look at, and that and any other text sounds like Dart's looking for. So we'll start pulling something together.
okay.
Is there a deadline that he wants it by?
They're still in the preliminary stages of the comprehensive plan, so there isn't really a deadline, but probably that earlier. There's no deadline. If you guys, go ahead, Bill.
Did they say they are going to hire a consultant to advise them on the plan or to provide them with additional materials?
They do want to do that as the next step. So one of the things that might work pretty well is if we have some significant, robust comments on the transportation chapter, we can provide them both to the consultant and to the comprehensive plan, and
Okay.
maybe be able to mesh them together. Like the consultant may be able to take them and draft some things with them, and then the comprehensive plan can work from there.
I also noted at the presentation by Dart Strayer before the town board at the last meeting, the March 28 meeting, that the comp plan committee is planning on doing a community survey as part of development of the plan. And I think that would be an opportunity for us to either forward the questions that we used in our own survey 2 years ago, or to revisit questions that we might want community input on that pertain to complete streets. That if we have 6 or 7 questions or whatever, or even 10, we should provide those to Dart Strayer and the committee to learn, well, just more on what residents think about complete streets issues, either things we need to do or things that are working. And if they're going to do a community survey, to me, I see it as another opportunity to get answers to some complete streets questions that would reinforce our desire to, have the town, the improved walkability and bikeability of the town would be one of the emphases of the 2023 comp plan.
Oh, yeah, I will. We probably aren't at the point where we would take individual questions from boards for the survey, because the committee has worked pretty hard on the survey, refining questions. But there are a couple complete streets questions in there that I can share with you. Just as you mentioned Dart's presentation, I just wanted to mention, I know we talk about this a lot, and I think we do have a list of accomplishments, but we had a whole slide essentially of complete streets accomplishments and what a big deal it is that this has been implemented in the last 10 years from the 2013 plan. That, for the first time, we actually had a complete streets committee and adopted a complete streets policy. We made a lot of these good connections, but even just bike rodeos and traffic calming demonstration projects are a really big deal. And this, for the record, was presented to the town board and, in my estimation, pretty well received. I can read you there are, I don't know if this will work or not. Let me see. There's basically, nope, that's not going to work. But there's basically, I think, a couple complete streets questions. The big one is like, do you let your children walk or bike to school? And then do you want to let your children walk or bike from school? And we're trying to get people to put in their addresses. So, hopefully if there was a number of responses from a particular street that said, I really want to let my child walk or bike to school, but they're not, that might be a good place where we could look to see if there's a way that we can make a connection. And then there's also a couple questions like, would you like to see, features in our main corridors, such as green spaces, trees, crosswalks, sidewalks, just to get a sense of people, support for complete streets treatments on our road.
Would it be possible for the draft questions to be shared with our committee to take a look at? I mean, if we wanted to fine tune a question, or if we could get 2 more questions added that pertain to complete streets, could we try to?
I'm happy to share them with you. You can certainly always suggest, but they have been fine tuning them for months, and I think that they would probably not be open to additional questions because they don't want survey fatigue. And this is one of a couple surveys that they want to put out. So this is like the beginning kind of connection to the public with how they're going to start interacting with the comprehensive plan. So I don't really expect additional questions. It's an overarching thing, but I don't want you to feel like there isn't anything in there that won't be very useful to complete streets, because there definitely will be some good data that's in there. But
Okay.
go ahead, Ben.
I'm sorry, did you say that there's a projected rollout date or timeframe?
Well, it actually depends. I have to talk with the supervisor. We originally talked about rolling the survey out ourselves, but if we get a consultant on board relatively quickly, there's also a possibility that the consultant would roll out the survey, and sometimes that's a little nicer for people, because sometimes people, I think, feel a little conflicted about submitting a survey to the town, to the government, and if it's going through a consultant, sometimes that can feel a little more open to them. So we're trying to decide exactly who will put it out. I mean, the data will be shared and we can all work with it, and hopefully it'll help guide the initial stages of the comprehensive plan. But again, I think it'll also identify places where people really want the opportunities to walk and bike their kids to school. But we don't know if we're going to put it out or the consultant's going to put it out. We're still deciding.
So at least specific to the concept of adding things like sidewalks and my kids walking to school and riding their bikes to school, which would be amazing. Like, I feel personally like if I saw something that was not branded by the town of Niskayuna, that I would be a little more hesitant to I think I would respond more favorably to something from the town,
If it was from the town, okay, that's really good feedback too.
at least on that end, like for that specific issue, just because they're the only people that can do something about it.
That's an interesting point. Yep.
I agree with Ben. And just I would trust the town more versus other people thinking that they're going to try to market something to me.
And then to that end, like if we know when it's going to happen and we know it's going to be from the town, it's going to look like this, like, please tell me how I can help get the word out, because I will get as many people to answer that survey with their addresses as possible.
Oh, that would be great. We're only taking street, which I know can be long if people live on like Balltown Road or Troy Schenectady. But in the interest of trying to allow people some anonymity so that they would be more willing to answer the questions fully. We're not making them put their specific address, but their road. So like if we got a bunch of people on Cornelius Ave, for instance, that said, I really want, we'd be like, yay, or they already are. But yeah, I would love that help. When we're ready, I'll send it to all the boards, and anybody that you can get that out to, Ben, would be great. The more people we can get, would be better.
I mean, really, if what you guys are looking for is data points, like I'll tell as many people as possible. And if the town is willing to act on this stuff, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I think the idea is it'll, well, one, I think it'll help us with our priority list, but two, it would get incorporated right into the comprehensive plan. And one of the things the comprehensive plan is considering doing this year is a lot of towns, they work really hard on the comprehensive plan. They get it done. They're like, phew, we don't have to do that for another 10 years. More recently, people are kind of keeping their comprehensive plan committee together. They don't have to meet every month. They meet like quarterly or, but they're still meeting in order to make sure that the implementation is occurring. And so that's something that we're exploring too, is that the way that we implement it isn't like, yay, we get it done. Obviously we still use it for planning and everything, but keeping a committee alive to implement it is something that we're considering this year too.
As just one final footnote on the survey too, that we learned in our own, that sometimes if you've got a question that you ask about a topic area and then you ask the respondent to say, strongly agree, undecided, disagree, strongly disagree, that they get the opportunity to do that. And then if there is, you're asking for additional comment after you get that, at least if you've got the boxes to start with, the computer can gather the data for all of the respondents. That where we ran into a lot of trouble is if it's just an open-ended question, then somebody's got to, read the comments and try to place those in categories, and then you get those are judgment calls. And I do appreciate having the additional comment to help clarify the question. I think that's valuable to have, but I do feel like to the extent that you can. You can have it be out there and you can have the computer gather kind of the main essence of the question without a lot of human effort and interpretation being done is a good thing. So that's worth taking a look at how they have the questions formatted. So.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah.
I was wondering, are we going to get a second chance to look at, or rather a first chance to look at the draft comprehensive plan, or is this our only opportunity at this point to have input into the comprehensive plan? Because if that's the case, then it's more important that we put all of our comments together as clearly as possible.
Oh, no, you would be allowed to comment, for we haven't although we've been meeting multiple months, we really haven't, we're not even, it's just, we were trying to build consensus and get to know each other and work on outreach and work on a survey. We were reading other people's comprehensive plans and getting ideas of what to put in. But the public outreach for the comprehensive plan hasn't started yet.
Right.
So and we would want that to be really long and robust.
Sure.
So you're talking at least, hopefully 4 to 6 months of public comment, going back and forth, doing drafts. So no, this would just be a first pass. This would be a first pass. We give some comments, get some input from the public, refine more comments. It's going to be a working document for probably at least a year.
Okay.
I mean, that makes me feel like we could have a heavier hand if we did a rough draft of the transportation chapter and send it to the comp plan committee, and they'd have something to work off of. At least we'd have our input in that to start with. So that's just a thought. If we had some people on the committee that wanted to work on that. So
Yeah, Ben. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I was just
You
gonna say-
raised your hand. You raised your hand. I didn't.
I was just going to say, or I was going to ask, so you talked about consultants. Are they the ones working on putting the actual survey together? Are you using an outside company that does this all the time?
So it was kind of funny because we were working really hard on the survey, kind of at the same time that the idea for a consultant evolved into something that actually the town board was willing to support, which is really great. It's like a consultant can do a lot of the heavy lifting that the committee really can't. And so it's really great. They worked very hard on this survey, and I think that they would really like to see this survey be used. Again, I have a feeling that the survey that they drafted will be used, but there's a possibility that a consultant would look at it and refine it a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even just to take like what they feel is basically ready to put forward, just to run it, like you said, by someone who does it all the time and has experience with like what types of questions generate what kinds of answers and
Oh, yes.
like that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think that would be the hope. Like the majority of the work that they did could be used, but they might be able to tweak it if there's a couple things here and there that they have seen don't get good responses.
So Laura, I'll just say really quickly, I know what you're trying to do and go through and pulling this together. I've done a number of these, but it would be great. I'm not asking for new questions or to have major tweaks done, but it would be great if some of the questions related to complete streets tied in similarly, at least to what the survey had that we put out there a couple of years ago, because then we could actually do some kind of comparison in a way of what we had from a couple of years ago to maybe some of the answers now. And, you know, a lot of our questions were kind of open-ended. I'm sure they're similar, but if there's a way, again, they don't have to be exact, but if a way that we can kind of be able to compare a couple of those, you know, in terms of people wanting walkability or whatever, you know, that would just be good to be able to make that comparison, even if it's not exact, you know, from one to the other, if that's possible. I know how hard it is to pull these survey questions together and get consensus. So I'm not, you know, I don't want to create a problem, but if that's possible, that would be great.
I mean, if a couple of the questions are close, we can certainly look. So I found, so like, for instance, the question that I was telling you that I remembered, oops, where'd it go? Is if you currently have school-age children, how do they mostly get to school? Walk, bike, school bus, drive? I do not currently have school-age children or other. And then of the modes of transportation, which would your family most prefer to use to get your children to school? Bike, walk, school bus, drive, get driven. I do not currently have school-age children or other. But there's also things like, of the following options, which do you use most to get to work? Personal automobile, bike, walk, public transportation, work from home. How many minutes do you drive per day? Well, this is more like where people are going for facilities, but things like how would you rate the following aspects of the town of Niskuna? And one of the things that you rate is walkability and roads, traffic conditions, and livability. But I really want to emphasize to you guys, I know that it's super tempting, but the survey is really meant to engage with people on a high level of getting input on, because I actually think we'll even do another one for the comprehensive plan, but just to get the preliminary input to guide some of the higher level parts to the comprehensive plan.
I think that's very commendable. I guess one of the things that we have found in talking to citizens in our own committee is that people are very responsive to safer walkability, bikeability, issues in their neighborhoods that prevent that. And really, if there are questions out there so that the town board and our committees in the town can see, it's just not this committee that's raising the hue and cry. It's really a large segment of our community. These are important issues. And, you know, with climate change on top of us, it's not just us, it's really the whole community. And if we've got questions that would tap that, so that would be reflected back to the comp plan committee and our town officials. I think that would be really very valuable.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything else on the transportation chapter? We still have kind of our work cut out for us to review the questions and also prepare comments and move those along to Laura and then on to Tess.
Well, actually, before we move on, Bill, Jim, I know you've sent me those questions a million times, but I have a new email system that I'm struggling with. If there was something in there that sounded similar to you, do you want to send those questions to me again so I can look at them real fast?
Which questions were those?
The
Sorry.
previous survey questions?
Yeah, I just opened up the Survey Monkey. I was looking at them. I think we have some similar things. We actually asked the same thing, give us your street and things like that. So there
Yeah,
are maybe
give
some
your
ways
street.
we can
Yeah.
be able to cross-link some of this, depending on what we get. We had 370 results of that survey back in April of 2022. So
Which is really, that's pretty good.
yeah, that was
That is
April
pretty
last
good.
year.
Was it 2022 or 2021?
No, that's not right. Someone must have put in an entry. That was earlier than that.
Might even have been 19. Is that possible?
I think
No, because there were some COVID questions in there, weren't there?
it was 21. It was 21.
Yeah, because it was
So,
post-COVID.
2 years ago.
I think we must have left we left the survey open for a while. And then I think when we closed it, someone must have put an answer in later on. But yeah, all the answers came in early 2021. So anyway, it just be good to compare them if we can. I think that sounds like there's a lot of similarities, so we'll be able to kind of see if there are any trends. I'm sure we know what a lot of the answers will be in terms of trends with bike and pedestrian, but it'll just be interesting to look at it.
Definitely. I think, and also interestingly, to drill down to the streets, because I think that the street level data is where we can really be super helpful.
Okay. Anything further on chapter 7 of the comp plan? Okay. If not, let's move on to our priority letters and our 2023 goals. The goals came out with the agenda for the last meeting, and I thought maybe if Laura can, we could just put them up and take a quick look at them. I mean, these are our committee goals. These are not necessarily the town's goals or the planning board goals. These are just our own goals for things we want to work on this year and things we'd like to address. So if we can take a quick look, I mean, I guess I don't want to adopt the goals in December. I'd prefer to do it as soon as we can. So just quickly, again, committee members wanted Route 7 road safety to move up to the top of the list. We did that. Ben O'Shea and I and other people have said we also want to focus on getting a safe streets and a grant application for safe streets and roads for all. The Plum Street sidewalk underway. We want to see that finished. Grand Boulevard, there is a grant out there to repave Grand Boulevard, put some bike lanes on. I guess there's a secondary grant that might do sidewalks, and I don't even know if the first one does curbs. I'd have to try to find that out, but you know, we're interested in seeing that completed. I mean, continue to make inquiries to the county and the state to see that gets done. We're still interested in push button crosswalk on Knott Street and Regent Street. And also we want to see the crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River Road be completed. We've had, a meeting with the school district, but we're ongoing discussions with them about safe pedestrian access. So we've looked at each school campus. We've made some recommendations on things we'd like to see happen there. And the school district has actually asked their engineering team to prepare their plans for sidewalks and asphalt paths to get into the school. So we've had some good progress there. Birchwood Lane has come up. I mean, we've had the comments from Mr. and Mrs. Aguilar about really it being unsafe to try to get their kids across Birchwood Lane to get to the school. And not only the crosswalk on Birchwood Lane, but there's a crosswalk on the entrance to Birchwood Lane. And there are even cars that cut through there when there are students that are trying to get across the entrance road and get over to the asphalt side path that goes down to the school. So that's of interest. Cornelius Avenue side path, we have good citizen support for that. We'd like to see that done. Rosendale bike path and side path. I mean, that's we've talked about Rosendale being kind of a anchor road, and we want to get a side path there that will allow people to walk and bike to Iroquois Middle School, Rosendale Elementary, and get to the Elisha Kill Nature Preserve. We've talked about the Crescent Road. I mean, that comes up every other meeting where we're still trying to get that resolved, and issues still going along with that. I mean, I've mentioned this one. We have missing bike path segments on Hillside Avenue, and I actually think that we have people up there that if we get a letter signed by the supervisor asking the Army, asking National Grid, asking some of the apartment complexes to complete their segment. I mean, the worst that can happen is they either don't want to do it right now or delay, but I think National Grid's interested in sidewalks. They might add it to their schedule and do it. The Army Reserve Center, they might do the same, and apartment complexes, we'd want to ask about that. And that really is important. People on the west side of town would have a better access way to the Mohawk Hudson bike path, and also have a better access way to the town pool. As you take Hillside Avenue down and then Banker, you get to the community center. And then finally, utility corridors. That's been an emphasis. We want to stay with that, it's going to be a long haul getting that going. But, even if we're able to ask the utility corridor, can people use the earth paths that are there now to walk their dog or walk their family or cut across town to get places? That's still something important. And then, our public education, we've got to get the town survey written up, which is an assignment I sort of gave myself and maybe Jim Levy as a deputy. So we've got to do that. We have updating the transportation chapter. We're working on that. We want to do a demonstration project in 2023. That should be 3. Then, the safety signage, we did send comments to Metroplex. It's working on signage for the Mohawk Hudson bike path. And then we do have a document on traffic calming measures that we have a little bit of an encyclopedia that's got 6 or 7 items in it. So if the planning board, town board, other boards want to see, for instance, if we get a smaller roundabout things or any other measure that we think is useful, like speed hump or whatever, we would put that in there. And then finally, our website on information about our committee, we need to do that. So, I mean, if people have other things they want to add, we can add, but I guess I would like to ask, we've discussed this a couple times, if members are okay, could we adopt these as our goals for 2023? And that's my hope for today. And so I'll open it up to any comment that people have about these items.
I think it's a really strong list. And I definitely second supporting it as the goals.
Okay. Got a first from the chair, a second from member Tess Healy. Any additional comment? I mean, if somebody had something else that they thought should be on here, or, I mean, there's always going to be another set for next year, but it's a start point. And, if the supervisor asks, well, what are you guys going to try to get done this year? I mean, we've got a document that captures some of what we're interested in working on. So anyone else have a comment?
I'm sorry, Bill. I was just going to say, I personally am really excited about this list because, in the course of like the last month or so, especially with being able to meet with the grant consultant, I feel like that was a really productive meeting where we were able to identify ways to like strategically check these things off and identify funding sources. And a lot of things that I think a lot of us didn't know about, like the spring highway stuff, that he was talking about, where that I think could really help with like the school signage and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm excited about it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think it's good. No issues with the list. I just have one question. Did I miss? I just don't want to fall off the list. Our priority of looking into mini roundabouts as a discussion item with the police chief and town board or whatever. Then that's something that came up recently. Did I just miss it? Is it on here?
Well, we do have maintain our source document on traffic calming measures. And so to me, we've got that document, and, you know, if we want to add anything to it, which that certainly would be one of the things we'd want to do. And even the flashing signs that you've mentioned, we probably should put that informational handout in there. So, I mean, if you want to suggest some text, or if it's okay for now, just to say it could go into our source document on things, and we could bring it up for discussion at a meeting. And certainly, as a matter of fact, I mentioned to Laura at the beginning of the meeting that we really ought to extend an invitation to Ian Munger, who is the traffic liaison for the police department, to ask him to join our meetings, because then if he either knows something that, like, the PD's covering the crosswalks, or they've done something, or, you know, if they have a concern about speed humps or anything, we could hear it, and they'd be able to hear us. But
I don't know, Laura, maybe I was just gonna say, just keep up the connections and relationships with others in the town, something to that effect.
okay.
Just so it doesn't fall off the written list.
And let's say, and highway department, you know,
It's
we have a standing invitation to the deputy in the highway department, Pete Rickova. So when we started the committee, we wanted them to be in the room, and you know, they have an invitation to join us, and there are 30 or 40 people that watch our meetings. So it could be highway department, town board, or other folks are tuning in. So
no, I think what Laura just put on there is good. Just something.
okay, good.
And
Well-
probably stay on here forever. That's great.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor of adopting this list as our goals for 2023, please hold your hand up. Okay, good. We're unanimous on that. Okay, secondly, and we have our priority letters, and I sent the items out to people. Laura, if we can, I'd like to just take a look at the list for each of the 4 entities: the school, the county, the state, and the town. And again, these are, I mean, we've kind of got a big list here, and we have another Excel sheet that's probably got 30 items or something on it. But each one of these entities, we want to send them a letter that's kind of got our 3 or maybe 3.5 top priorities that we want to ask them to work on. And you know, some part of it is just putting them on notice that this is a concern. And Paulina asked us, Manzo, that we send a letter, we need to follow that with a request for a meeting. And it was so productive in having the meetings with the school board and the superintendent of schools that it's kind of worked out well, that they're aware of what we're working on. And now there's more working together with the school and the town on a range of things. And so, you know, the county manager, Rory Fluman, is a very decent fellow, former county legislator, and we have some county things right here. I just think it's handy to ask for that meeting and sit down and go over some of our priorities, so that if we really want to make the case about the crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River, we can do that. A crosswalk at Regent, or our hopes for a bike path on Rosendale Road, that, you know, we show them the plan, we show them some of our goals, some other things, and we say this is important to us, and we'd like to get that on the county radar. So, and then of course the state, you know, it'd be helpful to have a meeting where our town supervisor and county others are, and hopefully a Complete Streets member would be in the room, so that we can talk about Route 7 and various issues with that, the crosswalk at Hickory Road and the other things. So these would all be letters that would be signed by the town supervisor, and then Ben O'Shea and myself, and we'd send those, and then we'd ask for a meeting. And so just quickly, if we could take a look at New York State again. Ben and other committee members have mentioned that, you know, safety on Route 7, Catherine as well, is our top priority there. We've got that. The school zone for Craig Elementary has been on our list for quite some time and getting that done. And then, a crosswalk on Route 7 and Hickory Road. Those are kind of the big three. Do we have another fourth one down here, or is that just those three? So those are the.
I went through your comments and I combined the school zone and Craig Elementary School into one so that we
Okay.
can still fit 3 on this page. And
Okay.
the safety measures is on top of, I think, all of them that we could put it on.
Okay. So that's the state list. Any comment from anybody on the items that would be going to the state DOT to ask them about?
That's good.
Okay. Let's move on to, I guess county is next or school is next. Niskuna School District. So again, this is safe bike and pedestrian access to schools. So we mentioned that Laura, Andrew Millspaw, and I and Jim Levy back in January, I think we had a meeting with 3 school board members, the engineers for the school district, and Superintendent Mummenthing. And we shared with him our input on what we would recommend for each campus. They actually shared with us plans that the engineers and architects were working on for each school district, and they may be going out to get a bond issue to do that. And if they do, we at least want our our input to be part of that. So if they're going to spend some taxpayer money to make the campuses safer, they'd want to do that. Secondly, we have the school zone and crosswalk for Craig Elementary School is still there. I know that the superintendent of schools and the principal at Craig, without more infrastructure work, would be reticent to ask to send any Craig Elementary kids going across Balltown Road with the speed of cars there. But, this is a first step. And then, we have asphalt side path at Rosendale Elementary and Iroquois Middle School. We're essentially saying if we can improve the trails in River Road Park, that as they're doing the work to improve the parking lots and stuff, let's take the next step of doing this connection to get from really Rosendale to the town park. And it may take a while before the side path on Rosendale Road gets done, but at least the back connection where Jim's children and Ben's children and Tessa's children would all be able to hop on the side path that goes along.
Bill,
That's
I
yes.
think everybody knows what these items are.
Okay.
I
right.
feel like it'd probably be a better use of time just to talk about the changes and make sure everyone's okay with
Okay.
them. Okay.
So those are the school district. Let's move on to the county.
So county, we moved the safety measures up to the top.
Yep.
And kept the crosswalk on Knott and Region and kept the side path on Rosendale and Iroquois and Leishakill. But I think
Yes.
the big difference with all of these, which I'm highly supportive of, which we talked about when we talked about changing these, was adding the safety measures for Route 7 as a top priority to really start pushing that.
Yes.
It's at that one.
Okay. And the last one is the town.
The
And
town,
that's-
this is the one that has 4.
Yeah.
So the safety measures are on top here, just like we had put on all the ones except for the school, because the school doesn't have anything to do with Route 7. And then kept the asphalt trails to Rosendale, sidewalk on Cornelius. I really think if we can never jump on that one, that would be great. And then the 4th one, which we've never actually had 4 in our priority letters, but I think it's okay, is the sidewalk on
3A and 3B if you want it to,
So is the sidewalk to Hillside on Plum already a done deal that doesn't need to be on here?
No, I think we did take that off because it is funded and we're just working on bidding it out.
Okay,
Sidewalk, yeah. I
Good.
do think we've got everybody on our side on that one. It's just a question of getting a contractor and having it come in on budget.
okay, that's fantastic because I've noticed compared to when my kids were little and walking to Hillside, there's definitely more car traffic. I think not as many people use the buses and it's worse than ever for those families.
Yeah, every time I go out there working on the Plum Street sidewalk, there's somebody walking and there's cars
Mhm,
everywhere.
mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
well, to keep it moving, if we're agreed, again, I proposed, and I got a second from Tess. I proposed these would be the items in each of the 4 letters that we would, Laura would put the language on the top, and we would send them to the town supervisor. Hopefully she'd be willing to sign each of them, and then her signature would be joined by Ben and I, and we'd get those out. And these are our priorities for 2023, and that these would prompt a meeting where we could talk to folks. So all in favor, hands up again. Okay, we're unanimous on that. So we're going to get those letters prepared and then get them over to the town supervisor as quick as we can. Next item is Route 7 safety and traffic calming measures. We've had a number of emails that have gone around, and really Catherine has kind of been leading the posse here on this. That we saw the news clip where Bob Carney, our district attorney, had noted that there were 4 fatalities on Troy Road in the last 12-month period. And he's reached out to the office, DOT, traffic safety and mobility with concerns. And I believe there'd been some discussion between Bob Carney and the chief of police in Niskayuna. And I guess we're need to focus on what our, as our committee, what our next steps are. And Catherine has mentioned, well, can we learn a little bit about what the chief of police has talked to the DA about on that? There seems to be some consensus that just asking the chief of police to write more tickets is not going to do the job. Just enforcement, won't do it. Catherine has mentioned some, the need for possibly some engineering solutions, and she's identified, reducing the speed limit, maybe some lane narrowing, concrete medians in the center of the road, at least for a short strip at each traffic light intersection, and that these would be raised, planted medians. And then we'd have push button crosswalks at least some of the intersections that would be high visibility crosswalks. And then we also, talked a little bit about, well, if there was a study, I don't know to what extent data's out there, but, if we looked over the last 10 years, a study might say, well, what's the average volume of cars on that road per day? In 2019, it was about 26,000. But, the average speed of cars in the 85th percentile, and then how many accidents there are and how many fatal accidents there are. And I would just throw it open. We hope there's going to be some meetings, but, what do folks on the committee think would be our best avenue to help move this along a little bit? So that's why it's here.
So, Ben, I see that you raised your hand, and I just wanted to mention, I know you knew a place that you wanted to recommend that has had similar treatments to what we were discussing with the consultant.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I mentioned the stretch of, is it 787 in Cohoes, Waterville Elite right there, where they had the accidents, like the pedestrian fatalities, right where the bike path crosses over to Green Island, right over there. They completely retreated that whole area. That was the area that I brought up, but I raised my hand because I had just a revelation in my mind about the Route 7 thing. Because of the size of the road, I'm really kind of concerned about doing high visibility push button crosswalks. I don't think that's going to be enough. I think you need a stoplight. You need like red lights with it's a pedestrian crossing that's triggered by a push button, and I don't think anything else is going to work.
Yeah, but Ben,
Sorry.
if you go out on Route 7 out in Latham, they actually have that push button crosswalk with a stoplight and a raised median. So it's just that exact thing. And yeah, I agree. You push the button and it goes yellow, red, and it's a stoplight.
Yeah, I agree. I also think by getting the priority letter out the state DOT out as soon as possible, and setting up that meeting and having a discussion with the safety people, because they have traffic safety engineers there. And I'm sure they can come up with some reasonable solutions as well. And we want to get it done as quickly as possible, because if Route 7 is up for pavement or any kind of, I'm sure there's going to be some maintenance activities going on Route 7, because that's a high volume roads. I just couldn't find anything in this STIP, the state STIP, whether or not they are scheduled for any reconstruction or pavement. But this would be the time to do it. This, in the spring, to have that discussion with them as soon as possible.
So, Catherine, your recommendation is getting that meeting, sending the letter, and then what would be our town supervisor with maybe our county legislators and the county manager and DA Bob Carney to get in the room and at least articulate that we have those concerns, and we're happy to share data or do whatever we need to do to.
Right.
move it along.
I'm not entirely sure how much data we have to put together for this. I mean, the fact that there's been 4 fatalities there within a year, I don't know about serious injuries, because I think there is also quite a few serious injuries. And that's data that the state DOT has. I mean, so it's not, I don't think it's incumbent upon us to do that kind of research. I mean, we can if somebody has access to that information. I don't know. But, getting together with the town supervisor and maybe the county highway superintendent and others may be the way to go before we meet with the state DOT.
Okay.
Well, the other people we can ask for help is the CDTA. I mean, not the CDTA, the CDTC, I mean.
Right.
They're very good at actually getting the DOT to schedule the meetings with us. So we can kind of ask who they think is the best to be in the room, and they can actually do the outreach for us, because that's kind of like what they do.
That's right. That's a good idea.
So it's
So
not
I'll-
incumbent upon us to come up with engineering solutions, right? In other words, they know the kinds of things, and we just have to push for it. The road is not safe and you need to do something, and there's a lot of federal money out there, so we should be able to fit something together, right? I guess.
Right. I mean, we want to stress that we're talking about safety, not only for vehicles, but also for pedestrians and bicyclists. So, that's, we want to add that to it as well.
Okay. Okay. Anything further on Route 7? That sounds like a good plan.
We'll finish up the letters, get them sent out, and then work with the CDTC on a meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Does that mean we should have a get together of the locals before we meet with the CDTC, or ask CDT to set it up? And I mean,
I can just start communicating with people. I think
Okay.
it's the good step that we did today was proving everything with the Route 7 as a priority. I think it was really helpful when Ben and Tess and Bill came to the meeting with the consultant, because I also think a lot of good ideas, and that may have progressed since we met with them, like what
Okay.
their plans were too. So let's just keep getting people in the room about Route 7, and
okay.
I'll reach out to TDC and ask them what they think is a good next step too.
Actually, do you and or Ben want to just say a few words to the committee about what that meeting was about, what we discussed, and what your general take from the meeting was, meeting with the grant writer? I mean, we sort of said, hey, Route 7's a big problem, SS4A, maybe that's where the money would go if we worked with the county on that. And then I guess for some of the other things we had, like access to schools, we were thinking more safe routes to schools or quality communities, or CHIPS money would use to pay for some of those. But it was a good meeting, I thought. And I did appear before the town board to thank them for their support on Complete Streets things, and also just to kind of drive home the point that our neighboring communities like Glenville and other places are getting money because they're willing to pay engineering firms to do the grants. You can't depend on the staff that already work here, like Laura and the town engineer and Beth, the town controller, because they're busy with their jobs. They've got to expect to have to pay some engineering firms to do the grants. Also be ready to pay the 20% match that sometimes is part of the grants. And then also understand that, if you pay for a grant to go in and that one doesn't get funded, it doesn't mean you wasted the money. That just means you send it to another funding agency and hope you get it funded over there. So, my view was that the board is very open to this and ready to work on these sorts of things. So I was encouraged by that.
Yeah, I thought the meeting was really useful, and what Ben said about it, which I was just trying to find my notes, but I don't have them right in front of me, is that he kind of chunked out some of our priority list into different ways to fund them. So the consultant clearly had an idea based on the level of design that we had on how these things could be funded. So I thought that's what Ben mentioned earlier. I thought that was very helpful.
Okay. Well, we'll try to do, we've got about 6 minutes here. Anything you want to say about the crosswalk at St. Joseph, the crosswalks at St. Joseph's and Upper Union?
Nope, have been having some meetings with the contractor, and we are ramping up for spring. So those things should be going in soon. As for St. Joseph's in particular, I need to get signs out there letting people know that they can't park there. I want to give them a little bit of time before they have to drive themselves to Zenner soccer fields for parking.
Okay.
So
But the main
next
thing is
step-
the money's in place, right? And
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
what to bid,
I mean,
so-
the contract was awarded last year. They just didn't get to it, with the weather. But they're already ramping up. I've been in contact with our engineer, so that's going to happen this spring.
Okay. Plum Street, I think you mentioned it before that the money's
Street,
there. And
Yep, it's there. We're just working on a secondary design with the engineer for concrete sidewalks instead of an asphalt side path. And then we want to get that out to bid because we'd much rather have concrete sidewalks there.
Okay. Our spring complete streets demonstration project, I assume that we're still thinking about some bike paths on Lexington Parkway, or I think we were kind of disappointed we didn't pull that together last year, but we need to do a demonstration project, and that's.
Yeah, I think that's still the idea. I think I know we've said this a couple of times, but I think the only way that we can move this forward is probably to get a subcommittee meeting regularly on it. Oops, I lost Bill. You guys there?
Yeah, Bill looks frozen, but I agree, a subcommittee, and I'm willing to help with that. I'm over my bad vibes from the last one.
I don't think we'll get those from this one, actually.
No, yeah, I agree. Like, there'll be no, even though there are such beautiful painted tires, but yeah.
This is how we learn.
Mhm.
Okay.
That seems to.
Okay. I think we already covered safe streets and roads for all. Or Ben, do you want to just go through the last couple items with Bill gone?
Sure. Hang on just one second.
I'll share this.
The pedestrian connections to school campuses. Oh, is that Bill?
Yeah. So
Aw.
Jim Levy had sent us a message that Shireen Fasiglione, the principal at Hillside, had said, gee, the crossing guard has taken a leave. And, he mentioned the electric crosswalk as a device that we might look at intersections where you can't staff a crossing guard. And I also recalled that it's kind of a difficult situation at Birchwood Lane for kids to get in there. And so I sent the note around, and we actually got, and I had the conversation with the principal, Sarah Burnt at Birchwood Elementary. And she said they used to have a crossing guard, not anymore. She said there were probably 5 or 6 families that walked. The Aguilars are on Ash Tree Lane, and they've mentioned that it's hazardous to try to walk or use the crosswalk to get to Birchwood Elementary. The and then I sent the information about the crosswalks that Jim had provided. The reply was that the chief of police replied that they have an officer that's going to pinch hit for the crossing guard at Grand Boulevard and Van Antwerp until they can get a replacement. And Jim Levy mentioned that, well, gee, is the principal at Hillside going to send a note out to students to let them know that the PD is covering that? We'll have to see about that. And the Superintendent Mumathi was happy to, I presume he knew about a complaint by a family at Birchwood, but, you know, he's interested in looking at both instances. And so I think it helps reinforce the need for a side path on Birchwood and maybe a push button crosswalk on Birchwood to get access to Birchwood Elementary. And then, you know, certainly at Hillside, we need the sidewalk on Plum. We need an improved sidewalk on Cornelius, and we need the crosswalk, either a crossing guard or something from Grand Boulevard. Need that in place too. So I shared it with everyone. I was encouraged by the result, and I guess, you know, as long as we are here to nudge people to think about these things, we're doing our job. So I don't know, Jim or anyone else want to offer anything on this before we move on?
I did want to
go
note
ahead.
the police are at Grand Boulevard. So they have been stepping in for the crossing guard who's not there. But it just kind of shows that, you know, there are reasons we got to keep pushing forward with some of the stuff. Should someone not be able to be there, something like that someday.
Yeah.
RFBs and signage and other things are relatively inexpensive ways to help enhance safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add that to your point of the RFBs, we're seeing them pop up more and more in town, like at the co-op and, you know, on River Road and down at the Aqueduct. So, yeah, to the extent we can get them at intersections, I think it's a great idea to get them in. I mean, they're usually solar powered. I think, as Jim mentioned, they're probably not a huge cost in the grand scheme of things compared to staffing it with a body. So yeah, I'm in favor of getting them out there.
I was going to say, as far as the rapid flashing beacons, possibly replacing a crossing guard, like at Birchwood, if they're saying that only 5 families walk, like it's totally worth it to put in one of those for the 5 families that walk so that they can do it safely. Like it's very inexpensive, like Jim was saying. And that road, like the width, I think that's a perfect place. I can speak to Lake Hill Road up in Burnt Hills when they added it at the high school there. It works really, really well. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. It's very heavily traveled. It's the main access point for the campus for 1,000 people to go there, and it works. So it would definitely work at Birchwood and in a lot of places.
One question I had was, if your son or daughter's in the 3rd grade, would you trust him to push the button and get across that road, or would you have to accompany a parent to do that?
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that especially with Grand Boulevard, like not being a completely straightforward intersection and all the drivers not being trustworthy to abide by that. Like, I like that crossing guard a lot. She's really got that intersection under control. And so, like, I wouldn't want an intervention by us to, you know, take the place of a crossing guard. As long as there's still funds to support a human being, I think that's the best, especially because it has a lot bigger volume at that intersection than any of the other elementary schools.
Yeah, that intersection is totally different. I wouldn't put one there personally. Just my opinion.
I mean, I guess I generally feel like elementary schools, you almost want to ask for a crossing guard, a human being crossing guard. And then maybe, you know, middle school or high school, then, you know, you could use the push button devices. I think those age ranges are good. But, and to tell the truth, if we've already, I mean, I think we could afford one at both Birchwood and probably even at Craig if we had a crosswalk there, certainly. So I think that makes sense myself too. But anything else on the crossing guard issue?
No, I have a particularly hard stop today. And I don't have anybody to back
Okay.
me up.
Okay. Do you want to just say 1 minute on Winnie Road, or save that for our next minute, or?
I don't have
We
any.
can save it.
Okay. Okay. Well, in that case, if you've got to go, thank you to everyone for coming today, and thank you for reviewing the materials. And we'll just keep plugging along. So, thank you all for coming.
I'll
Thanks,
make a
Bill.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, moved by Ben O'Shea to adjourn. Do we have a second? Tess Healy. So we're adjourned, and see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Have a
all
good
for
one, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Laura.